Hello, welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 205. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With us this week is Isli
Yo.
and Messiah.
Hello.
Greg and Gyark are here as well, but they can't talk. They're robots.
You're
That's right. They're just listening silently and sending me messages in Discord like, hey, I got your recording. I forgot one to like disconnect it or stop the recording because I have to manually click the button. And he messaged me like 5 minutes after the podcast at one time. And he's like, yeah, I hadn't heard anything for a while. So, you still recording? He's like, I'm going to stop soon. And I'm like, my bad. I
As
left you
long
in
as it
chat.
doesn't
listening to
record
you.
something weird.
But yeah, I mean, I was no longer in the voice chat. That's why it was like not recording anything because I bounced out. But yeah, I'll go ahead and jump into it. Not a whole lot this week. Obviously, Doom, the Dark Ages came out. I have not played it, so I can't comment. And I don't think any of us have played it.
No.
But there is that. But as far as news goes, so Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2 is getting official mod support. This is something they promised a while ago to support the community. And essentially what Saber Interactive has done is they released the official integration studio for public use. It's essentially the exact same editor the developers use internally for all development. So it's like really cool to see, like, I mean, right now, caveat, I have no idea what the mod support looks like for a game like Baldur's Gate or other games that have mods. I have no idea if it's like, is it a one for one tool or is it just like, here's a restricted access to our game, which is what I feel like mod support from a developer typically is, not like,
Mhm.
yo, here's our tools.
Here's a
Uh,
mod editor that we created.
yeah, but yeah, it's this first release. Reading here from IGN says the modder works with everything from level scenarios to game modes, tinker with the AI behavior, abilities, melee combo logic, the HUD elements, user interface, and just a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, they're saying, this is from the studio saying, "quote Not long ago, we promised we would support the modding scene, watching the community grow, push boundaries, and create incredible experiences has been both inspiring and humbling. We're excited to see what you'll be able to build next, whether it's cinematic campaign, wild new game mode, or something we've never seen. Because obviously, there's been some mods out, but not through like a super official tool like this.
Mhm.
And to get the ball rolling, they released a fishing mini game. So Zaya has to play Space Marine 2 now. Because you like fishing. I was like, if they got fishing mini
But
games, you're all about it.
but she only likes fishing when it's in a game that's not meant to have fishing as the main focus. So it still
Yeah, it's not
falls.
actually what
It's
this
still
is.
appropriate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Space Marine 2 is that's not the
No, no,
It
I'm
has
focus.
to
agreeing. I'm
be
saying this fits
Yeah.
perfectly because it's not the main focus.
it has to be not what the game is about whatsoever, and it also has to be in a very like apocalyptic, depressing setting. It's
Yeah.
just like I'm gonna go fishing.
Someone can make a mod campaign of like, Titus, the Xenos fish have inhabited the lakes of this planet. We need you to get rid of them. And like then you go down and just fish them all out of the lake and then just stab them as you do. And like, yes, for the Emperor. But yeah, it's cool to see a lot of mod support. I'm curious how it'll translate because sometimes when they have mods, it's like only in PC, but they'll do like half baked versions or certain like bits of them over to console platforms. Like Fallout does something similar where they'll have like, hey, obviously PC has way more support, but if you use the mod tools they give, some of those can be released on consoles if the console allows the mod support for that game.
Mhm.
Usually a pared back version of it. So like because like Baldur's Gate 3 has mods as well. Divinity Original Sin 2 has mods in console. So it'll be interesting if they kick up. But yeah, that increase the longevity of that game while they work on Space Marine 3. And then we got the announcement of Stalker Legends of the Zone trilogy, which is an enhanced edition, next gen upgrade to the Stalker franchise. That I watched the trailer, and one thing I wish they did, which usually games whenever they do an enhanced edition of an old game, they'll show like, hey, here's the old game, and then they'll screen wipe to the new game, to show like the upgrades. And I watched, I'm like, I can't tell how much of an improvement this is. Like I remember Stalker when it came out way back, but I don't remember its visuals off the top of my head. I'm like, can you put a side by side? But I didn't see anybody else do a side by side yet, so I'm waiting for that to happen. But that got announced. That's coming out on the 20th, so right around the corner. If anyone wants to play the OG Stalker games, don't know if I will, but hey, the option's there. I know it's a franchise that people really like. I didn't realize it was a trilogy. I thought there was only two Stalker games and then the new one. But yeah, I guess Shadows of Chernobyl 2007, Clear Sky 2008, and then Call of Pripyat in 2009. Damn, that's back to back to back.
I don't think I ever played those.
Yeah, I remember it came out. It was one of those games like it was like Crisis back
Yeah.
when. Like people talked about it in that vein, and it was like only on PC. Eventually, I think it did come to Xbox, but like it was like the PC game. Like, oh, you played Stalkers, and I remember it so well because every letter in it has a period. I'm like, that's why it stood out to me. I'm like, all right, what's going on here? But yeah, it was like a big thing at the time.
Yeah, I
I don't know.
remember a lot of people talking about it. I had a lot of friends that played it. And so like I have like memory of the game, but I think I've only seen people play it in like brief spurts. I don't remember ever playing it.
Yeah, I'm curious how it'll hold up. Like, because that's one thing I always think about when in that era of games. Like, is the gameplay like obviously the gameplay will be of its time. So it's like, was it still good? Like, was it good then? Like, clearly it must have been because the game I remember it being reviewed pretty well. But like, can it stand the test of time now?
Mm-hmm.
But they've released Stalker-like games since then that people have really enjoyed and praised. So, like the gameplay loop is something people still enjoy. Like the most recent Metro, which I'm blanking on which one it was. Not I remember the game itself. I'm just blanking on what it was called. But the most recent Metro is pretty similar to Stalker, and it's really just kind of that like somewhat open world format, but you never really get overpowered and you never really get like a drastic level or quantity of weapons or items that make the world easy. It's like RPG light
Sure.
elements, and I feel like that's still a really popular genre.
Yeah, no doubt it is. But I like if I went back and replayed the OG Metro, like I don't know if I would have as good a time as I did with
Sure.
Metro Exodus and then even the sequel to Metro, which I did play. So it's like I some of these games, like even like the first Crisis, it's like going back, it's like, yeah, it's fun, but you could see like it's an FPS of its time. Despite the fact it looks good. It's like, but when I think of something like Half-Life 2, like if you played Half-Life 2 now, there's stuff they do in Half-Life 2 that they don't do in other shooters even today. Um,
Yeah, that's fair.
so it's like it's like a cornerstone of the genre, and I'm sure they will be fun. I just because I never again because I don't have that experience. I didn't even play the new one that came out. But maybe it could be a good place to jump in. Maybe I'll put it on Steam and it'll go on sale, and I'll try it and be like, yo, it's a lot of fun. I'm because it's 2007. I'm wondering like that's such an interesting range of time, the end of the aughts, as it were, for video games, just because of the consoles they were developing on. Then moving on. So I guess Hideo Kojima had like an interview with a bunch of folks. Sort of like a bunch of people talked to him, I guess, about something. But he was saying how he has like a USB stick full of ideas after he dies, so he can the
Mm-hmm.
studio can keep going. I thought that was such a cool idea. Like, oh yeah, just have a bunch of rough drafts of stuff, especially if like they're just the most insane ideas anyone's ever heard. Uh,
They're gonna look at that USB stick and be like, "We don't know what the fuck you're talking about."
he's like the Tupac of game developers who were like, "Yo, new Hideo Kojima game just dropped. Check it out, man." But, yeah, it's a funny idea, but I'm wondering, like, I guess, like, I'm trying to think of, like, if another developer, if, like, if Sam Lake did the same thing, I guess, like culturally, like, would people be like, "Yeah, let's keep going," or, like, would there be kinda like a like, "Oh, we pressure to, bring that idea to life." Like, could you do it? Is there, someone close to Kojima's crazy mind, depending on how much detail he gave in his ideas, right?
I feel
Yeah,
like
that's
they
what I'm
would be like
saying.
2 sentence explanations, and it would just be like for Death Stranding, it would be like delivery man in the apocalypse, and that would be the only explanation people would get for the game.
Yeah, he's got well, he talked about a game, like, a couple ideas. He had, like, one where, like, a forgetting game where, like, the main character would forget stuff if you took too long of a break between play
Gameplay is
sessions.
balancing pizza.
Well, hey, you gotta do it properly, man, otherwise you get a
But
negative review.
okay, but can you imagine opening a Word document with his game ideas or something, and it's just like delivery man in the apocalypse. Gameplay is properly balancing pizza. People would read this and just be like, the fuck?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's gotta have, like knowing him, he's got more than just, "Hey, here's back of the napkin quick," you
It's
know,
it's either
yeah.
2 sentences or it's 2,000 pages describing each idea.
It's
It's
just like
It's
it's the
nowhere
whole
in
script
between.
for every game written out.
well, it's on a stick, not a notepad, so it's gotta be a bunch of stuff if it's on the USB stick. This thing's great, though, so hopefully he's got a backup. He's got it in the cloud. Email gets pinged out when he passes away. It's connected to his heart rate. It's like, I've passed. Here are a bunch of ideas I have. But I mean, I mean, it would be kind of cool. Don't get me wrong. If I mean, you see that for like, not that it's exactly the same, but like, the if when Heath Ledger passed, they finished up the Dr. Parnassus movie, but they had other people take his place in the scenes he couldn't do, and kind of so at least they can still get it out, or finish authors that pass away and someone else comes in and finishes the book series that they were
It's
doing.
it's an interesting idea, but I'll be honest, I don't know if he's influential enough that I would want other people just making his ideas versus doing their own thing. Like, I enjoy his games, but it's kind of like really fucking stuck up to think that your ideas are going to be better than like people who come after you and might be making their own games.
I mean, they don't even have to like make them. It could just be, brainstorming. Like, hey, I mean, it's like when you do pitch meetings at Game Studios, right? It's like, who's got an idea for a game? Everybody pitch something. That's how Horizon Zero Dawn came about. So it's like, hey, just here's a bunch of
Yeah,
ideas he has, and maybe people riff off the idea. Like, oh, I kind of like aspects of this or aspects of this one. So you can do kind of this meshed where
but
you take some core
but
basics and then
usually
do your own.
the people in pitch meetings are alive.
Yeah, it's fine, but
Yeah, usually the pitch meetings, the ideas you're like riffing off of are people that are in the meeting speaking and like contributing. I don't know. I find it funny, but I also find it kind of like stuck up to think that um that his studio, like the Kojima Productions, is only going to produce his ideas even after he's dead. There's definitely a level of like, man, you should be prepping successors or something if you really want your legacy to live on. You shouldn't be like hand feeding everything to them. You should be training them in order to actually do it. It's I don't know. It rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. Like I do kind of find it funny and I find it kind of fucked up.
yeah, I don't think it's like, "Hey, you have to do this." I think it's more like because it's gotta be a big pressure when, like, the main face of the studio is gone, and then I mean, that's why people get so excited when it's like, "Oh, this developer's back. Oh, the guy who made this is back. Oh, they're back." Like, even though the studio they were at still exists, people get excited that they're back. I think it would probably be easier for them as a studio to transition if a game was based loosely on an idea of his and then someone else within it, because not only would it help them be like, okay, inspire their creativity, I suppose, to be like, okay, we need someone to come up with these ideas after this one. Let's build off something that at least we got a blueprint for, and then film gaps, maybe rework it however you want to do. It's
I
kind of
was
like
to say,
when
every time they're back though, the game is never as good. Like, look at Dead Space versus God, I'm blanking on what that
Callisto
game was
Protocol.
called.
Callisto
Yeah,
Protocol.
Callisto Protocol. Like it was Callisto Protocol was a good game, but like it definitely wasn't the same level. And I do think that a lot of times when people are like, "Oh, he's back," they put all the pressure on the one guy when really the reason a game is successful is that it's the entire studio that's contributing to it, not just the
Sure.
one guy. Because there are only a few examples of games where like it was the one guy and then the new game they made was actually like as good or better than, their spiritual successor
Yeah, but I mean, Evil Within
or
was
predecessor.
good, and then they had someone else do Evil Within 2. I think of it more like God of War, right? Like, okay, every God of War, it's like it's a new director, but it's someone who worked on that game. So you have someone who maybe worked on Death Stranding 2, they come on, they become the director. But again, I think it's fine to have some ideas. It's gotta be, especially it's like if it's that's why I was curious, like, is it also a kind of a cultural thing? Like, uh obviously if someone like would a US studio do this or something? It's not like when Amy Hennig was we have no idea how that if they got kicked out or whatnot. But like, did she leave behind a USB stick? Well, here's some more Uncharted ideas. You know what I mean? Or if Neil Druckmann leaves, like, is gonna be like, oh, here's some more potential, Tlu 3 ideas or something. Like, uh, that I feel like wouldn't necessarily be the case. Because I mean, I'm going back to God of War. Like, there's earlier developers of that who had like different ideas of where a game might go, where a third game might go. And it's like it doesn't go there at all because it's an entirely different director of the sequels. But I choose not to be cynical, but I get where you're coming from.
I
It
feel like I have a little bit of mixed feeling to it. My inner cynic is like they're just going to use this as like this is the only thing they're going to do because they feel like they have to make these games and they're going to like try to cash in on it like oh this was a game that he left us and this was his idea and stuff like that, but like the optimist in me is like oh this would be a really nice way for them to like honor him, like they continue the studio doing their own thing or whatever, maybe they finish a game that they're already working on and then they're like hey we're working on something else but we're going to use one of his ideas that we really like to be like, he's kind of a legend. So here's his last like masterpiece or whatever. Like we're just gonna make it to honor him.
Yeah, and I mean, like, too, it's like you got to look like when Amy left, and then suddenly Uncharted 4 was like, okay, what's going to happen with this? Like, there was concern about, obviously Neil Druckmann, Bruce Straley, they have worked on the Uncharted games previously, but there was like, what's going to happen in this game? If you lost, like, not that he's the main creative person, but he's like a big contributor to the creative ideas.
Mhm.
it's like if you lose them and then Koji Pro puts out a new game that has, just by some random person, it's like how many people are there'll be curiosity, but you gotta think from like just purely from a business standpoint, it's like how many people are going to get the new Kojima game that's not Kojima?
Mhm.
Sure. I'll give like one case where I could see it being like somewhat useful is if you have Death Stranding 2 end on some huge cliffhanger that's kind of crazy and wild and clearly was being foreshadowed, and people just kind of want an example of like, okay, where was like maybe we won't go the same direction, but where was he going with it?
Mhm.
That'd be cool to know. But I don't know. I kind of as a general rule of thumb don't like worship culture for single game directors because I feel like it downplays every other person in the studio.
Sure.
And I don't think they have as much. I think a game director can do a lot of damage to a studio, but I don't think that they can have as much like positive influential experience or kind of input on it. I think that like at some point you have to acknowledge it's the entire team, and while they might have come up with the original idea, I don't know, I think a lot of times it's like they could do more damage than good.
Yeah, well, again, it goes back to the culture thing too. I'm wondering, like, with the U.S. studio, I've seen so many enough behind the scenes stuff where it seems like the people involved are. It's a little more collaborative, even though you have the creative director kind of driving the ship. They can take some ideas and feedback from folks, but like, how much of that collaboration is there for Japanese studios?
That's true.
Like, so it goes again. It goes back. So the people that are there now, do they kind of work with the idea that, oh, I don't need to worry about being an idea guy or pitching stuff in a review. I just give feedback on, hey, does this work? Does this not? Or what have you? Like, I'm curious about that, where it's like, now if your creative is gone, who takes up the mantle? And there's got to be just immense pressure to be like, because if they revere their creatives so much more, I feel like Japanese culture than even in, uh, like the US and elsewhere, where it's like
That's
they're
fair.
legends, especially so.
I have no idea if that's the case or not. So that's the fair point that like culturally it could be totally fine.
Yeah, like I think one inspired by Hideo game, but built on by the team as a whole, collaborative effort, could be a great transition point from moving away from losing him. Very forward idea. I was like, oh, when he's gone, they make one kind of half game of his, and they go and then do something else. Because I mean, we see that now, even with like that's why people say they don't like Dark Souls 2. Like, oh, it wasn't Miyazaki,
Mhm.
it's like, and he's alive. So it's like even though he helped give feedback, so it's like, yeah, I feel like, especially from business, and maybe it could be a good. I feel like
God.
it.
Though weirdly enough, Dark Souls 2 had like the best PvP of any of the Souls games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a the USB drive has a shard of his soul, right? So they're like they got to keep him alive, and they're gonna paint this. But no, so
Boo.
it could be
Spoilers.
it could be a I didn't say to what, but it could be like a way to help, like, process grief or something. Who knows? I don't know. Like, I would love to read like that, like, oh, all these ideas I have. It's like it's a PS I love you, but for video games, right?
Yeah.
But uh,
Don't get me wrong. I would love to read the flash drive. I don't know if I need to play games based on all of them, but I would love to read the flash drive
sure, yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure it is just absolutely batshit insane.
yeah,
I'm sure
yeah.
everything about it is insane.
Yeah, it's probably all crazy. I just think it's a interesting idea. I don't hear too many other, like, it's not like Quentin Tarantino's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do 10 movies, but I have, like, 20 that I wrote down." Like, those
It's because
folks,
it's all just
they write
really,
screenplays and they just put them out there.
really graphic scenes of foot fetishes for Quentin Tarantino. That's all it is.
Yeah, but, like, I'm thinking about that, like, screenplays, like, there's no game screenplays, so it's like, there's the screenplay just sitting there in storage, and someone picks them up later, and they go, "Oh, I like this, and I'm gonna make a movie out of this thing." Like, that would be kinda cool if, like, but the problem with games is, like, you can't do that because then the company will be like, "Oh, we own that idea." You can't just free float, video game screenplay ideas out there. But interesting stuff. I thought we'll see. I would say that's way down the line. We don't gotta worry about it. And then, yeah, some unfortunate news for Haven Studios. Jade Raymond left. That's the studios behind Fair Games.
Speaking
Um,
of.
yeah,
I'm
and
just
I'm like,
laughing because I feel like she just leaves every studio she joins
yeah, which
after like
unfortunate. I'm like,
2 years. Like, what has she done?
I'm always rooting for Jade. Like,
Yeah.
he
Didn't
does
we actually
something, then
just
she just
talk about
keeps
this 2 weeks ago about Jade Raymond? Because we like just
out of.
recently we talked about her like joining new studios and being like, what the fuck is she up to?
Well, we might have talked about it in relation to the Bungie demo for marathon, maybe because that's a service game and she's working. We haven't seen fair games in a while, but apparently, according to Bloomberg, they didn't give a reason. Leadership didn't give a reason for the departure, but apparently it did come several weeks after external testing of the game, and apparently it wasn't received super well, or at least that's the idea. And then maybe she bounced or something. I mean, yeah, who knows? And she's like, okay, well, if the game's not received well in internal testing, and she's like, all right, I'm just gonna bounce, and now I have to. Maybe she saw what happened to Concord. She's like, I'm out. Like, I guess, like, I don't know. That sucks because I'm always like rooting for Jade. Like, she's one of those names in the industry that I've known for a long time. And one of the few women developers I feel like is known more broadly than other, like, up there with Amy Hennig and whatnot. Like, even though Amy's had a bunch of creative credits under her name. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, she's gone. So we'll see what happens with Fair Games. That's where Jade goes next. But unfortunate news. And then Nintendo, according to IGN, Nintendo published a list of Switch 1 games that will get free performance upgrades on Switch 2. So not quite what they're doing with like the Zelda Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom upgrades they're doing there, where it's like, really big improvements. It's just like improved image quality, higher resolution, smooth movement kind of stuff. So like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, ARMS is getting an update, Big Brain Academy, Toad Treasure Tracker, stuff like that. So a lot of big list. Super Mario Odyssey. Apparently, Super Mario Odyssey 2 will add game share support, so you can play it. One person controlling Cappy and one person controlling Mario, so you can do that as well. HDR support. So Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. I'm sure they'll start releasing more lists like that of like, okay, what's going to get kind of like a native boost versus what's going to get the games that will get the extra touch, like Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. It's, very common with what we've seen with like PS3 to PS5 or PS4 to PS5 and stuff like that. Xboxes going up. It's like, okay, some will just get naturally boosted, and then we'll have games that we'll kind of focus more on to give a better attention to. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the news. And like I said, not a whole lot that's going on. I tried going through and seeing if there's anything else that I missed, but apparently there's like a Darth Vader AI in Fortnite right now, but like it will
Oh,
repeat what you
yeah.
say. It's like people are made it say the F word by mistake, so like they patched that out like immediately.
By
Okay.
mistake. They made it say it by mistake.
Also,
Well, I
like,
think you ask a
it's
question or
probably the
something.
first thing you need to test.
Yeah. It's like you ask them
I
something,
mean,
'cause I saw the
literally.
streamer asked something. She said the F word, and then it said the F word back, like, in the response, and like, "Oh." They're like, "Oh." Which is funny. Weird stuff, weird stuff. But, and then, yeah, not,
Weird stuff that's not at all surprising to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody.
yeah. It's like when people go to Walmart or Target and they have those little toys where you can, like, press the button and it records what you say and repeats it back, and then always like, and then they play the toy, and the toy's, like, doing the sound all over and over and over. It's like, "Oh, no, oh, no. What are you doing?" But silly stuff like that. But yeah, that's, pretty much it. So we can go ahead and jump into what we've been playing. I saw you were playing FF earlier. So are you just doing your normal stuff in that game?
Yeah, just whenever I am not when it's not my turn on the PlayStation,
Yeah,
I play Final Fantasy.
that's right. Yeah, we talked about this last
Classic.
week.
Mhm.
Have you both finished Clair Obscur at this point?
I
I
have
have.
not. I haven't finished the story. I finished pretty much everything in the overworld, and now I'm gonna go do the story and be way over leveled for it. But that's fine. I might change it to hard just because I can now.
Do it.
But I haven't finished the story yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm at the same point where I'm right at the so major spoilers for Clair Obscur at this point. Yeah, I'm at the same point where it's like, okay, go to Lumiere and do the final thing. Like I
Mm.
ran through the city and I got like to the last flag and I asked Isli like what's worth doing in the side because I didn't want to do a bunch of side stuff on stream because it's just like that's boring, especially when all the enemies are like so strong. I don't want to spend 20 minutes or like an hour fighting the same fight, which is I honestly like because I was doing some offline yesterday, Isli. That's why I didn't stream. And I was watching a movie, and I was at a point where I'm like, man, I'm feeling a little bit like Blueprints, where some of these fights because I have to defeat some hard fights to get up to a good level to do the bigger ones, and I'm like trying to grind out some of those stones to level up the weapons, and I'm just like, you make one mistake, and it's like, okay, the whole fight is lost. and I got to start over, and it's just the very same. Okay, block, block, block. Like I know all the attacks now. It's easy, but you just make one timing error, and it's like, all right,
Oh,
the
I
whole run.
totally agree. I'm not gonna complain about that. I think that
Yeah.
my we could talk about this a little bit more later, maybe now, but like I think my biggest complaint with the game is probably the scaling of side content and the
Mm,
difficulty of side content versus the main world. Just because I told you like the four areas.
Hmm.
I've beaten the game and I've beaten all the side content. I got the platinum. So I've done pretty much everything. And I gave you the four areas that I think are like critical to do, and I think you could pretty much ignore every other world area. Those are like the four that you should probably do. But even those four, they weren't all for like they weren't all because it was, oh my god, here's a really cool boss, or like even those four areas aren't perfect. They're still designed as side content in a way, and some of them have like repeated fights that are just kind of like either you get super overpowered and it's not fun because you can just kind of cruise through it, or it's the same fight over and over, and if you screw up once, you're completely wiped because they do so much damage that it wipes you out. Um, I ended up respecking all of my characters to basically just have builds that start them with 3 shield. Because then it's basically you have 3 shields, you have 3 attempts to fuck up or 3 accidental things before you get wiped, and usually you'll be wiping out all of the enemies before then.
Yeah.
Because the scaling of like they're just going to one hit you with the
Yeah.
mhm.
side content on hard. If you screw up once, they just kill you. They do 10,000 damage. And that was kind of why I commented that like Vitality, I made a joke way early when you were playing this game that Vitality is kind of worthless. And then I was like, oh, I shouldn't make this comment and explain because that will cloud his judgment. But the reason I made that comment is because at the end of the game, even if you have 99 Vitality and Pictos, well, even if you have 99 Vitality and like no Pictos, you're going to get one shot. But then if you put on the Pictos that are like 6,000 health each, then you can survive. But then it means the 99 Vitality is pointless because you're just getting all of your health from Pictos anyways. So there's definitely like a little bit of a scaling issue. And then if you actually do all the side content and then go into the end game, which is what Zai is going to experience, the end game is significantly easier because it's like the difficulty progression is meant that you beat the end game and then go into side content, but the side content has, and I'll try to like no spoilers, but like the side content should be done before the end game for like the full experience, but the difficulty is the exact opposite of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and that's my issue because, like, when you said that, I was like, well, I'm gonna end up it'll turn into Blueprints perfectly because then it'll be the same thing. I'll beat the game and I'll be like, then I won't have an urge to do the side content that is ridiculously frustrating to grind through initially, and I'm like,
Correct.
I won't wanna do that. So I'm trying to do it now, but, like, I can't do it too long because then I'm just putting it off, and I don't know what the hell else I'm gonna stream after this game, so it's not like I can just I'm gonna have to finish it, and I'm just like, "Ah, man." So I have
There's
to.
there's like one of the four areas that I listed could be done after the game without it really impacting the end of the game. But
Mhm.
like 3 of the 4 areas I listed should be done prior to beating the game,
Yeah.
which makes it challenging.
And
Mhm.
I was annoyed because I was trying to look up I, like, went onto the when you gave me the list, it's like, "Okay, you gave me the list, let's open up the interactive map so I can find out where they are." So I'm not just flying around blindly. Because I remember, like, "Okay, I know one's over here, but, like, where are the other ones?"
Right.
So I opened up the interactive map and I'm like, "Okay, well, let's see if I can find, like, where's the best spots to get the final upgrade stone." And then, on IGN's interactive map, there's this area that I went to after Eski could fly, and it's like this red forest on the right, and it's like, "Oh, there's, like, 3 or 4 of those stones on their interactive map."
Endless Night
Just
Sanctuary.
Mhm.
just in the open, like, showing it on the world map, like, in the open, because there are some
Yeah.
items that are in the open world. But I went down there was nothing there, and I was like, "Okay, either they're wrong or I gotta, like, zone in or" like, and I was just like, "Okay, where the hell?" So I was like then I looked up elsewhere, I was like, "Okay, where else has them?" It's like, "Oh, just do the challenge tower, just do this, do that." I'm like, "Okay." So I
Endless
can't just, like.
Tower's pretty good for getting drops and not as if you haven't done it yet, it's not as big of a slog as it sounds like. It sounds like it's just like an infinite fighting tower thing, but it's not that big of a slog and it actually goes fairly quickly.
Well, yeah, except the goddamn duelist, which is a fight I loved the first time through, has just way too much health, and I'm like, "Man," and then it's like
And all his moves are different.
slightly, yeah, and it's like and it's the same thing. It's right. Oh, I make one mistake, and it's like, okay, well, because it's the end game, I'm only focusing on my main three. So like my other two characters are a little too far behind. I don't have enough upgrade. I didn't upgrade their weapons enough. And
You need the Pictos that halves your health but starts you with 3 shields. That ended up being
yeah,
my like favorite Pictos.
That's the thing I don't wanna do is I don't wanna have to fall to do a cheese, "Oh, let's just make a Verso, uh, shot build and then just hit like, start at rank S and then have 1 HP and then or shoot them and then do, like, 200,000 damage with that one ability." Like, I'm like, "I."
But agreed with that point, but there are definitely like 3 Pictos that every single build should have. And you might call it a cheese build, but my counterpoint would be like, for example, the painted power Pictos that exceeds the damage cap. Every build should have that.
Oh, right, of course,
And
obviously, but
it's not going to
that's
be
given to you
cheese.
in the
Yeah.
story.
And it's not going to be cheesy to use that. But there are also like 2 other Pictos that frankly every build should have because not using them is just nerfing yourself for the sake of nerfing yourself in the same way that not using the painted power would be.
Yeah, and I well, the problem is,
And
like, I know I'm probably missing. Go
the
ahead.
thing about the shield one is it gives you the shields, but it halves your max HP. So it's like you have a bit of a give and take. If you can't figure out the fight in 3 turns to where you can't take damage, you're just gonna wipe anyway. So it's
But
like
I think it's kind of well, it's I think it's a little more overpowered than that though because on hard everything wipes you in one hit anyways. So it's like you're giving up half of your HP, but it's like half of one hit kill is still going to be a one hit kill.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
what I mean, is I'm saying it's giving you that chance to like learn the fight as opposed to like just going in and dying immediately and doing
yeah,
it over like starting the fight over and over
right.
again just to learn the mechanics. It's the shield is giving you that like buffer to learn like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
this is what you're
it's
gonna do.
yeah, it's like when it's like someone learning to fight in Souls games versus just someone doing, something that does some massive damage and they don't have to learn too much, kinda like one of those kind of ideas. Like, I guess, like, the shield thing could work fine if I had, like if I get the cheater Picto, that would
Well,
be great.
that was the other
And
one I was gonna say. It's like the cheater Picto is the third one that like frankly if you're not using it, like you're just nerfing yourself.
yeah, of course, like
Are you not
the
using it, Zaya?
I got it right before I went to bed last night.
nice.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
because
I
like
didn't get it.
yeah, I wanted to get it, but I'm like I'm at the point I'm like, "Okay, well, I wanted to go level up my guys, so at least I'm doing more damage." Because 'cause I'm like, again, because I know I'm at the end, I don't wanna waste time fighting spongy bosses, and, like, I was like, "Oh, that's why I was hoping I could oh, those stones are in the open world," and it's like, well, they weren't there, so either something's the map's wrong or I gotta do something special for them to show up.
It's IGN's map shows them in the open world, but when I can explain IGN's map, when they're grouped near an entrance or a dungeon, what it really means is they're within that dungeon, not that they're in the
Okay,
open world. IGN's map is dumb.
okay, so I gotta go in there, but is that a
UI
red
interface
dungeon?
issue.
Okay,
The red dungeons aren't all actually red. They're not actual like in some instances they're an indication of the difference between your character and the level of the dungeon, but this was somewhat annoying too. That's not always the case, and there are in fact red dungeons that have 0 enemies in them.
yeah.
Like the red dungeons are worth going into, even if they're red. Still go into them. Just check them out. Every single
Yeah,
one, because half the time it's going to be an enemy that one hits you, and half the time it's well, third of the time it'll be an enemy that one hits you. A third of the time it's going to be like a random record or item that has 0 enemies in it, and a third of the time it's going to be some other challenge that's not related to difficulty or enemies or anything like that at all. But like you should just start going into everything you come across, even if it's red, because you're far enough in the game that like you'll get there. When you were in the Crimson Forest, for example, I know that like it was annoying side content, and I mentioned that that was where I kind of like first bridged the gap into like end game content. But it was basically, yeah, the fights are kind of boring, but they're all pretty easy to parry. They have high health, but they have low enough health that you can actually kill them, and it's not like a 30-minute battle to kill one enemy. And I think when I watched you stream for like 30 minutes in there or 45 minutes in there or something, you got like 2.5 levels. So you start getting into endgame content where it's like even if you don't feel like you made massive progress, you're getting like 2 or 3 levels, which gives you Lumina points, which gives you the ability to get more Pictos, and you're also finding random drops along the ground that are higher level and getting like weapon upgrades. And since the weapons scale exponentially, once you're past like level 20 with the weapon, every increase is so drastically higher than the last that you just start cruising through content. Like you're gonna hit
yeah,
a point where I don't use the broken Mael build. I kind of wish I got to try it out before it was nerfed, but it's almost not even. It almost doesn't even matter because my main party right now is Lune, Monaco, and CL, and like CL is really fucking broken, not from damage, but from her support perspective. Lune
Mhm.
can do AoE damage pretty much just as well as Mael, and Monaco is just kind of fun, but also does a shit ton of damage. So all of your characters kind of scale to the point where you either one hit an enemy or an enemy one hits you. And that's kind of how the game is when you're at like level 80 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I was thinking, I was like, okay, I could just stack a bunch of the like, if I had cheater, it's like, well, then you could stack just a bunch of the strength buff ones as well, like the glass
Yep.
cannon, the
Which
warm
is
up, full
exactly
strength.
what every endgame build is. That like
Yeah,
that
it's just
right there
putting
is
those on.
exactly what the endgame build is stack every damage thing you can find and then give yourself 2 to 3 shield.
Yeah,
That's it.
and then like getting like all the augmented counters, I guess you want it that way, because if you had a counter, you're doing increased damage there. Like there's a lot of stuff that like, okay, I could work towards this, but it's like again, it just comes down to the fact that like I'm at the end, like how much do I want to spend time doing this? Especially because like everything that happens in the story, like after the paintress, is like because I'm wondering like, okay, well, what's gonna happen next? Because if this is the end of Act Two, the fuck is Act Three? Um, and then it's like, oh, where it goes in the story, I'm like, okay, so what happens? Who are the writers? What happens at the end? Like, and I like, I want those answers. And like doing the side stuff is just keep me away from that. But
I mean, for me, a lot of the reason that I wanted to do the side stuff before actually finishing the story is because, well, the primary reason is that I'm gonna finish the story, I'm gonna be upset about it, and I'm not gonna
mhm,
want to play for a little while. But that's just me. The second thing is, of course, there's content worth doing. It doesn't explain things or really answer things. It just kind of adds to it, and it's just interesting. I like the world and the characters in it and stuff like that. But the biggest thing that I found is it's just for me, it's fun. It's so fucking fun, especially like I don't know how to explain it. It's just like they're puzzles to me, basically. You find like a boss fight or an enemy that's just like kind of wiping you out, and you're like, okay, what do I have that could counteract what's going on here while also still not making this a 45-minute fight? So it's just kind of like looking at it with that aspect rather than like having to change every time and not being able to use your same build and stuff like that. It's more like I know that I have these things that I can put on everybody that'll kind of counteract what's going on here. And also like being in a fight and being able to, because I'm playing on normal mode, I'm not playing on hard, but just being able to like get the fight going long enough where you're learning it, but you're also kind of discovering a strategy in the middle of it that you can either start doing or you're kind of coming up with ideas of like, okay, I know what I can do to make this fight easier. I'm just going to wipe now and I'm going to just do this like fun, what I think is going to be fun build for this fight and stuff like that. So it's like approaching it more as like a puzzle rather than just like smashing your face against it like I was doing in the beginning of the game, just constantly smashing my head against difficult fights and being like, I can do it. I'm sure I can do it. I just don't have to get hit, idiot. And it's kind of like approaching it more as like, let me figure out what the gimmick is and let me make my own gimmick kind of thing. So that's kind of the reason I've just been constantly doing not only the side content, but the side content that I was way under leveled for. It just made it kind of fun.
yeah, yeah, I'm sure I see that for sure. Yeah, it just like again, like Izzy said, it comes down to the scaling because I'm like, even if I like, because
Mhm.
one thing I stopped and was like, okay, I'm just gonna stop dodging and I'm just gonna parry everything. And even like when you do that, it's like, okay, it's not enough to help. Like there early on, there's a lot of times where, like I do a fight and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna, I've been perfect dodging, which means I can perfect parry. So these particular moves. So and usually I always dodge like a throw attack. Like anytime they throw something at me, I'm like, I always just dodge it to have better because sometimes the timing of whatever they're throwing is weird every time it's a new enemy that throws something. And I'm like, okay, let's just transition from dodging to parry, so I get extra damage, and that speeds up the fight, yada yada. But like even then, like now because of scaling, it's like even if you just parry everything and get the counters, it's like it still takes a while, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, this is
I
it.
I mean, my build, even doing like augmented counters or things, it basically is like you start prioritizing, how do I put this? The side content, there's enough of it and it's challenging enough that you start prioritizing your build in a specific way to beat side content as opposed to the main story where it's kind of like you just build as you go along and don't really worry about it. But
Mhm.
for the side content, it does often feel like there's a correct way and an incorrect way to play. So, like, you want the painted power Pictos, you need it. The cheater Pictos, you'd kind of be dumb not to use it because it literally doubles your damage since you get 2 turns in a row.
Right.
Like, it literally doubles your damage. And then it's also like the thing you mentioned about parrying, unless you're stacking all of the damage, your parries don't really matter. And they also do like 19 hit combos. So it's like the trade-off for having all 19 parries being perfect in order to do an actual counter is kind of often just not really there when AP doesn't like AP in the end game isn't really an issue anyways because there's so many pictos that give AP. You could just build around it in a different way so that you only have to dodge and
Hmm.
still get the AP you need to execute all of your turns. And it's kind of like you start building of like, oh, parries aren't really quite as important anymore like they were in the story. Therefore, I will just build for AP and dodging and have an easier time avoiding damage. Oh, damage is too high. I'm going to build shields. Oh, I need to just maximize damage as much as possible because the enemies have millions of health. I'm going to stack every single damage picto, and you end up kind of building that exact same build for every character. And then it's like, oh, I found like the two weapons I like. The only build I really need to do is 99 of the attribute for each of those weapons. So like the scaling in the end game, it definitely falls off a little bit in that regard. That said, I still think this is maybe the best RPG I've played in like 10 years. I love it. I think it's phenomenal, but it's not without its faults.
Sure,
The
yeah, it's really
side
good. And like,
content definitely scales almost immediately exponentially. You hit that end game like wall and you're just like, oh, everything sucks now.
yeah, and there's that healing pairing too, because there's that healing pairing picto
Hmm.
where you get HP back on it. So like that's really good. And usually if I just like parrying. Like it's fun to like unless they end the parry with a gradient attack, I'm like, okay, I'll just dodge for the AP and then gradient attack them. But yeah, I just parrying just fun. It's like how suck it, bitch. I parried all your shit. Um but yeah, it's I what I should probably just do is just respec the characters and just dump into the 2 stats that they're using for their weapons and just I have so many respec stones and just do that because I was gonna wait to do that anyways. Because like I'm not didn't change too much of my skills and what have you. I just kind of work with what I got because I'm like I've been using it the whole time. I don't. It's like when you came in the stream one time, like oh try doing Loon's Loon's other ability. And I'm like, but it's gonna throw off my whole rotation now, and I we have to get used to. And then he told
Got
me
a
to
theme
change it, but
going.
he didn't tell me to do the other two things. He's like, oh well, these two abilities support.
That's
Luckily,
okay.
she had
That's a great
good.
example though of like how you have to play a specific way or how the game directs you. Because you hit a damage cap, the way the scaling works is that the best abilities are the ones that hit multiple times for a decent
Sure,
amount
yeah.
of damage. And it's like there's just a few too many things like that with the scaling, where it kind of is like, you like I want to play a different way, but you're really directing me to play this way specifically.
But, like, it wasn't like that method was it wasn't, like, drastically different than what I was doing because I like mayhem, but it was like it was then suddenly it was like, "Okay, well, I have to try this," but it had now I have to change what I was doing, and that's why I was like, "Oh, I really don't wanna do this because I gotta change." Now, I did obviously end up beating the boss, like, on the 2nd try, and it just speed up a little bit of that time because of that, but, it wasn't like it didn't drastically change, which was suddenly it was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing, like, 4x damage now." It just because it takes a little bit longer to set up than Mayhem, so it's kind of again, rotation just changes and a little bit different. But that's what I was trying to avoid. That's what I'm trying to avoid. It's like I'll just stick with what I'm doing and just beat it, beat it that way. But I might have to just change it just to get through some of the side content to get to the point where I have my weapons leveled up to where I can go back to what I was doing, but now
Yeah.
I do a little more damage. And then it's like I don't mind if a fight is like a big boss fight's like 15 minutes, whatever. If it's fun, that's fine. It's just like, oh, it's the chromatic version of this enemy. Okay, here we go. All right. Gotta deal through this now. Oh, look at that. Look at the sliver of HP down, even when I did a lot much damage. But but yeah, it's but like I said, otherwise I love the game. It's just only gripe is like I wish you could have done more side content earlier. I wish more
Yes.
of it was accessible in
Yes.
Act 2.
Absolutely. Even Act 1, like the side content is good and there's a lot of it. And I really like how the side content is structured and it's very worthwhile to do because the side content has really good drops in a lot of it. It has upgraded materials. Hell, a lot of the side content has lore that you don't get in the main story that actually is important for your understanding of the story. It has expedition journals that are kind of range from like really dark to like hilarious. The side content is really, really good. It shouldn't all be only accessible in Act 3. It should be spread throughout the game, especially the bits that are like important for story.
Yeah, it's like it yeah, it that is my biggest frustration is they save way too much for the end, and it's like it should have been that first continent, like that one red zone, the first red zone you come across in that pink forest. It's like it should have been red from the start, but it should have been easy to do once you get through the rest of the start. Like you shouldn't it
Or
you gate kept too much behind Act 3. I feel like it's
or the
just
side content should be like always just a little bit more difficult than like the main area you're in. So the side content of Act 1 should be like a bit more challenging than Act 1 so that the progression is that people play through Act 1 and then maybe do the side content of Act 1 and then
Mhm.
play through Act 2 and do the side content of Act 2. It shouldn't really be like, "Oh, I've played through Act 1 and I just did 2,000 damage to this enemy and its health bar didn't move at all and oh hey, it just did 40,000 damage to me. I'm not
Exactly.
supposed to fight this anytime soon."
Yeah, and that's
And it shouldn't be
every
that for
single one.
yeah, for everything.
Yeah,
Like
like
one or
that's
two secret areas like that in each act, fine. That would actually be fine with me. It's really just the sheer quantity that it's basically every area.
Yeah, because like, I typically when I play RPGs, I wanna do the thing like, "Oh, I hit a major story beat. Okay, I do some side content. I hit a major story beat, I mean, that's like it's the same issue I had with Final Fantasy 16 where, like, so many quest lines didn't resolve until the very end, and it's like, "Man, I wish they could've." I mean, I kinda like this, okay, some of these, I'm like, they take some are fine, like, they take a while, they have good payout, but other ones, I'm like, "I wish we could've resolved this one sooner," because it's like, I feel like you get to points where like, "Okay, this act of the side quest isn't all that good, but I have to do it, to keep it going because it's not gonna end until later on." It's like, I wish I could just and there are some that just end, but the ones that have, like, those long ass quest lines in 16, I'm like, it's that kinda similar thing, but just bosses that, "Okay, don't come back to later." Man, I'm speaking of, like, dark stuff, that one area where, like, all the expedition, like, use their dead bodies to build a bridge, it's like, "You guys are
I
alright."
love that one. That one was
Fucked
like
up.
I
Yeah.
love that type of side content.
Like, "You go for it, man." I was like, "Okay, sure, why not?" But, man, so did any of you expect, like, at all where it was gonna go after the Paintress, like, with
So
what happened?
this is something I wanted to talk about. I did expect that to well, I can talk
And
about my
how?
I can talk about my predictions somewhat more openly now.
Yeah,
So
what were your early game predictions?
my very, very, very early game prediction was probably the same as everyone else, which is that Mael is like the long lost daughter or something. Like is related to Renoir, is the long lost daughter, is something which I think is probably a fairly obvious prediction given the fact that, like you said, she looks exactly like Alicia. Like
Alicia? Alicia, yeah.
yeah. So that was kind of my early game prediction. I didn't quite know how that would play out, so that's almost kind of an unfair prediction because it's so vague of like obviously they're related and it's like, well yeah, obviously they are. All the story beats indicate that they're related. She's the one getting the nightmares. She's the one having the weird flashes.
Right.
Like obviously they're related. My kind of thought of how it was going to go was that she was probably the long lost sister or like orphan sister because they mentioned she was an orphan and that Verso was trying to lead her towards the end of the game for some like I don't know, some vague reason of like Verso is trying to lead the long lost sister home. In regards to the actual reveal, like the end of Act 2 reveal, I started putting it together probably like midway through Act 2 because I started having this recurring thought of like, this world is really weird. Why don't people question these things? And I started wondering like, we're seeing a bunch of interesting enemies and creatures that aren't in Lumiere, and you get no indication prior that like that any of this is real. So people were surprised the Gestrals were real. They were kind of surprised the Neverons were real. And I was kind of like, why don't you guys know about any aspects of your world? And why is Lumiere seeming like the only town? And I started having this nagging thought of like, is the world building actually kind of shitty? I'm like, this feels like a made up fantasy world and not in a like, not in a good way.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see where you come from, just real quick. I chalked it up to the fact that the Paintress is just making things, so it's like they won't have, a big like, they hear rumors of stuff perhaps from, this and that, but it's like, if she's making these creatures, it's like, okay, well then, that's just they just say, okay, if they're being made, this is why they, didn't exist previously or what have you, so it's like you don't it's just the magic of the Paintress. But
Right.
go
Which
ahead.
is sort of an explanation, but then it's like, but the world is really big. And I started thinking of like, is Lumiere the only town in this world? Like, I started the suspension of disbelief. I started having problems with that kind of as I went through Act 2, and then I was like, well, why doesn't the Gomage like, is the Gomage a worldwide thing? Is there more to this world than just Lumiere? Why aren't other countries or towns or whatever sending expeditions? Why did it start at 100 and it starts counting down from like a very human number? And I started like questioning all of these things, and I'm like, there's actually kind of a lot of like weird plot holes in this. So I started questioning all that, and then you get to Renoir's first and second fights, but really like the first fight, where since I speak French, I am sitting through the song, and I put the lyrics in chat the other day. But like the song is essentially an argument between Renoir and someone named Eileen, who you don't really know who Eileen is, but you can kind of interpret based on the song that it was probably like Renoir's partner or lover or something to that extent. And I like you hear them arguing back and forth. You know that Eileen is some important figure, and I'm like, well, obviously it's probably narratively the paintress is the other person in the song. And then they keep singing like, I'll always love you. Please stop painting. I'll never stop painting. And then one of the lines is leave this canvas. So they sing about very like painting related things, but like the lines of like leave this canvas, drop your brush are it could be symbolic or could be kind of realistic. But I think the reason I somewhat predicted it, I think the game actually drops a lot of hints that when I've been watching you play, I'm like, wow, there are actually a shit ton of hints toward this that I didn't pick up the first time, because in the context of watching, I mentioned this to Zai the other day, but like you went through a cutscene where they're talking about like other Verso, and in the context of the cutscene, it makes it seem like they're talking about like, oh, Verso's just kind of grown as a human over time, and his opinions have changed, and like they're talking about like the mistakes he made in the past as being like, oh, that was just the old you, but like you've grown. It's been 30 years. You're a different person now. But what they actually mean is literally other Verso, the real world Verso.
Hmm.
So they do actually drop a lot of hints, but I think the reason I kind of called it was the accidental thing of I made a joke really early on when I started playing that this game felt like French Final Fantasy, and I talked about how it felt like the expedition was going up against Sin and all of that, and spoilers for Final Fantasy, but obviously the big twist in Final Fantasy is that none of them are real, which is somewhat retconned and changed in the future games. But like Final Fantasy X itself, the twist is like that none of them are real. There's some piano intros that sound exactly like Into Xanarkand or To Xanarkand. That it just started all kind of clicking into place of my suspension of disbelief, the nest egg that I already thought the game was somewhat like Final Fantasy X, that the world didn't really make sense. That once I started thinking, oh, and then the song about like quitting the canvas and leaving the canvas, there was
Yeah,
part of
that's a
me
big
that's
one.
like,
Getting the
yeah,
lyrics to that one.
so the lyrics to that song, that's why I was like, I wonder what the experience is for French people playing this game, if it's actually a big reveal. Because for me, I mean, let me pull up the actual
Yeah, I know the lyrics.
lyrics.
I looked it up after because I there was that guy who was doing the analysis just of the music, and then someone in chat just said like it's an argument between Renoir and so and so, and I just like stopped right there and like, okay, I know it's a song about an argument, but I didn't read the lyrics. I just knew that it was an argument. That's why they're yelling.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, so
but
really quickly, the lyrics are stop loving me, I'll always love you, drop that brush, leave the canvas, I'll always paint, stop painting, drop that brush, leave that canvas. And then there's in every shadow I see his face. I don't know what this word is in French. In every shadow I see his face, and all of the colors I see his smile. And then it goes like verso, 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 verso is part of the lyrics. So it's like yeah, paint love, paint life, cry in color and painting. Our love dies with you. Our love resides in you. Love, dream, cry, love, verso. Love, dream, cry, love, verso.
okay,
Um,
yeah, it's
so
very.
like, yeah, as
Here's
soon
what's
as they're
going on.
like singing, as soon as you realize that that main conflict song between the paintress and Renoir is singing about leaving a canvas and stopping painting, and how they're always going to love each other, and how in every part of the world they see reminders of, like, the song is basically every part of the world they see reminders of who Verso used to be and of Verso. And then you put that together with like Renoir being like, Verso makes a comment in one of the like mid Act 2 cutscenes. He's like, I'm not him, I'm not real. And Renoir's like, you're real to me. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that line was like, oh my God, both of them are fake. Like,
Mhm.
very like he's not the you hear that song and you're like, "Oh, Verso's not the real Verso." And then Renoir's like, "But you're real to me." And it's kind of like, "Oh my god." So like it all started clicking into place, and once I had that seed of doubt that the world was real, when the reveal came at the end of Act 2, I'm like, "Yep, this makes sense. This is an explanation for everything strange that's been happening."
Yeah, like I if I had seen the lyrics and probably wasn't streaming it, could have been because like you said, questioning stuff and like I just take it as faith value. Okay, yeah, sure, this is what it is. You know, like in Persona, there's a weird dream realm they go in and they fight stuff in the subway. It's like sure, it's just it is it is what it is. Like, but yeah, if you ask me like, hey, yeah, it's you're living in a Mario painting, and but my question is like because if you just translate, it's just like someone creating a world made of like AI, like it just creating something, a virtual world, but instead it's painting. Because I was talking about that on stream.
Yeah, I should
It's
say
the
like
fantasy version of that.
I
But
didn't know it was going to be literally a painting, but
mhm,
I did assume that the world was fake in some way and that the references to painting were just because the big bad was called the paintress.
right.
So like because the big bad is the paintress and because it's a song that occurs before the reveal has happened, I sort of assumed that the references to canvas and everything like that were not literal like they actually ended up being. I assumed they were symbolic of something else, but I did have the seed planted that the world wasn't real and it was all the painters is creating. There were parts of it I didn't get, like I didn't think that Renoir was also a painter, and like I didn't, didn't grasp that Mael was a painter. I thought it was just like the painteress, but I got the world being fake part, just not the whole. No one could predict painters versus writers, right? Like that part kind of comes out of nowhere. That's
Yeah,
very
that
Assassin's Creed.
and I have so many questions too. I'm like, okay, the like again going back to like AI, like if you create NPCs, but in the painting, like they are so real. So I'm like, is the magic of a painter like what you're creating is just a pocket dimension that where they are real people in that painting, versus like just again an AI NPC that seems like a free guy situation. Like, how real is this power? Because I feel like, and again, I said that. Well, I don't know how much to say because I don't know.
That's
Uh,
basically the moral dilemma, right? How real is this power? What is all
well,
of this? That's
but
your
that's why I want to beat the game because like, how much does this gets answered? Like, okay, outside it when it goes you back to year 46 of the Gamage, it's like the Alice's sister is there, I guess, like, oh hey, they're still stuck in the painting, but I'm dealing with the writers. I'm like, okay, so you got the writers against the painters. What do they have living books? Do they have like never ending story situation going on? Like, what's happening? And everything's floating around. Like, what I want to know more about the real world. Like, this is the Abstergo assassin situation. Like, I want to know what's happening outside the Animus. Like, what is going on? And,
It did
uh,
feel very Assassin's Creed. I'm not going to comment on it just because I've beaten the game, but it did feel very Assassin's Creed with that reveal of like you've got the writers versus the painters, and it made me want to learn more about the real world just because I'm like, okay, so the magic in the painted world can be explained away by the fact that it's a painted world, but it made me like be like, okay, what is with the magic in the real world? Like
you're right.
clearly there's magic in the real world too then. So what is the real world scenario here? It definitely made me want to know all of those answers.
Yeah, and is it only real because it has a shard of him, like part of his soul in there because he made it, or like what is the painting mechanic? Can you just paint anything? And it's like, oh, if I Tom Riddle myself one piece of my soul inside this in case I die, you know what I mean? Like Harry Potter or something. Like
I think
how
in
I need more explanation.
that part I can at least comment on, and not in a spoiler way, but in like a theory way of like in that cutscene, I feel like they show other paintings and things, and Renoir mentions they've painted other worlds. So it it seems like it doesn't require a Horcrux in order to like make it a world.
Or Mickey's magic brush. Like it's they just have the power. Like you're born, you either have the power to paint or the power to write. It's like, and now there's a war, like because clearly there was a fire. Um,
That's
what
what I
what's
get
it? Good.
the quote unquote real world. It gives me a very like Greek pantheon kind of vibe because it's like, okay, they are creating worlds and creating life, quote unquote. So they're essentially the role of like gods. If they
Hmm.
were in this world, like if it wasn't just like a total fantasy world and they came into the world and were like, I created all of this, look at my powers, they would be worshipped as gods, essentially.
Mhm.
And so it's like you have the painters, you have the writers. Are there like musicians? Are there authors? Well, not
Yeah,
authors.
every creative
Yeah.
creative
So it's
art.
like, yeah, it's like this whole pantheon, and they're all just like fighting each other for some reason
Yeah, it's
because
like
that's
how
just
far
what
does
they
it go?
do.
What's going on?
Yeah,
Yeah.
are there game dev? Like, is there a Kojima in their world that has, like, crazy video games you can go inside? And you're like, "Holy shit, what is happening?" Like, I need to know more, and that's why I'm curious,
That's
like, what
what his
happens at the
USB
end?
flash drive is.
Oh, shit, don't go inside
Oh
there.
fuck. Oh no.
You get trapped you get trapped too long, you lose yourself. Because I'm like, I feel like, I did well, I can't talk about it because I don't know. I don't wanna spoil anything
You
for
you can talk about it.
no. Well,
What?
because like, well, n now I kinda lost how I was gonna talk about it, but, like,
Because
I don't need
you're
to
worried
talk about
about
it.
spoiling shit for Zaya.
Well, it just because like, I thought something was going like, there was gonna be a thing, and then it's like, okay, to me, there was hints, and it's like and then I also got kinda spoiled on, okay, there will be a thing, and then, not exactly about the outcomes, but like, oh, I was correct in assuming there would be this, because the game kind of says there will be. But I don't wanna say it just in I'm assuming that I just don't know how to ask the question to confirm. It's like that meme I sent you. "What do you know?" "I know
Send
some."
me the question because I think I know where Zaya is.
Well, Zaya's at the same spot I'm at, so, I mean, we both have the same information. It's just like,
It's like a
uh,
theory
Zaya's
thing though,
done
but
more
you've been
world
spoiled
content.
on something.
it's yeah, it's like I had an idea, like, okay, it'll come down, it's this thing will happen, and it's like, I saw a confirmation that essentially this thing does happen.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm curious though, Zaya, if you saw the twist coming or your take on it, since my take was the song and there were hints along the way, but the song lyrics really help. But I've seen polarizing takes from other people that have been playing the game on Twitch and things that got there, and like seems like it's a half love it, half hate it kind of situation.
So after the fight with Renoir in front of the sorry, in front of the manor, I went and looked up the song because I'm not fluent in French, but I know enough where I can catch like bits and pieces of it. And I was like, I am also focusing on the fight, but I'm catching bits and pieces of like contradictory statements. So I went and looked it up and I was like, okay, yeah, it's contradictory because it's an argument type of thing. So I was like, I thought for a long time that it was like a kind of like Final Fantasy X, where it's like it's not real because it's stuck in a time loop kind of thing, where it's just like this just keeps happening over and over and over again. And every time it happens, the world like disintegrates a little bit more, and we're at like the crux of it or something. And the number was basically just like, here's how many cycles are left before everything is just done, over with, done, kaput, go away.
That would have been a
So
cool
having,
take.
yeah, so having the like the little bit of the twist, it's like that's sort of true. Like the countdown is this is how long you have until like game over essentially.
Mhm. Yeah, because she's trying
But
to prevent it.
yeah, but having the reveal that it's like it's literally Final Fantasy X, like it's just a fake world entirely. And now you have this like outer thing. Like I mentioned, it seems like a very like kind of deity, like godlike kind of thing where they have these powers to create worlds and life and stuff like that. So it's like I actually like that a lot better than my kind of like, oh, this is just a time loop kind of
Yeah,
thing. We're
I
trying to break
definitely
out of it.
agree with you because I thought timey-wimey stuff too. That's why I thought the whole Mael being the mask, girl, I was like, "Okay, they're the same, so it must be some time thing," and Renoir's like, "She you know what happens if she does her thing." I'm like, "Okay, so clearly this is must have happened before, early on, this must have happened before." And
Hmm.
either it's like you're trying to break the cycle or you're trying to do something, and then, uh but yeah, I did have that I initially was kinda like when it happened on stream, 'cause the problem with me is, like, I beat that fight so late, and it's like Kojima Lane cutscene once you do, and I'm like, "I just wanna go to bed, man." I'm like, "I gotta get to bed," and it's like 40 goddamn minutes or something like that, and I'm just like, "When can I save?" Is I was kinda bummed out at first because I was like, anytime a TV show or something does Dallas is a famous example, show I never watched, but, like, there's a whole season where some crazy shit happens and, like, oh, it was all a dream at the end of the season. It's like, now it's just cheap writing for the show, but, like, anytime it's like, oh, it's nothing was real, I'm like, "Okay, well," I was kinda bummed because 'cause I'm like, does any of it matter then?" Like,
Hmm.
that and then I am kinda glad that they do that at the end of Act 2 because in Act 3, it's like, okay, Mal wants to save her friends, and, like, I wanna bring them back, and I'm like, "Okay, well, they seem to have" I wish they had more conversations about it, like, Luna kinda yells at him like, "Oh, you knew this whole time?" And then Sael's like, "Oh, I can get my husband back," so now she's, like, no longer interested in you, even though you guys do it one more time. So I'm like, "Okay." Uh, it's funny when, like, they hint at, like, she's like, "Oh, I don't like to swim, I don't like water." I'm like, "Well, I know why you don't like water. You don't have to save this for friendship level finale to tell me. I know you don't like it
Mhm.
because A, your husband died in water, and then B, I'm sure something you probably didn't deal with that." No, she didn't.
I mean,
So
I will say
so
minor
French.
spoilers for that. I did like the reveal that of like the explanation of why S.K.E.R is like, "Oh, you're a bad swimmer." I did like that
Mhm.
reveal for level 7.
It was
Yeah,
so
and, like
cute. She's like, "Oh, you did it." He's like, "Yeah, just don't go swimming by yourself anymore." I'm like, "Oh, SKA."
And then
yeah.
also his comment of like that he was created this might have been an earlier part, but the comment that S.K.E.R is basically like the therapist and was created in the world is essentially the therapist. I loved
Basically,
that.
yeah.
You're probably a therapy dog, right? Um,
He's
and
just a
then
Baymax is what he is.
yeah, and the other dog, Minoko, just really likes to pick fights, right?
Mhm.
I do like how Minoko has, like, a slightly altered Verso voice. Like, that was one the whole time because, like, their voices are so similar. I'm like, it's like, okay, is that and at first I was like, "Oh, that's because if he's a gestural and he learned to talk, he would have learned his quote unquote accent from Verso." And so
Mhm.
now he's just emulating him, to speak it. But, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, I was kind of yeah, bummed out a bit that it's all fake. But because they have you go back and, like, play some more, and now Mael's she wants to bring her friends back and stuff, and, I do like that idea of when they explain it, like, "Oh, the Paintress is just trying to prevent the destruction, but she can only hold back that power, and over time, her power wanes as she decays," because she no longer looks like,
I like that reveal that the number's not actually a countdown of a threat, it's a countdown or it's a warning. I did like that
Yeah.
reveal.
yeah, and, like, every time it goes down, like, she loses a bit of that power, and this is the only way she can channel it to slow down this apocalypse essentially that's
Have
coming.
you
Yeah.
I ask this just because I can't remember where I can't remember what side content, what's Act 2, what's Act 3, that kind of stuff. But like, have they explained why she's getting weaker yet?
Uh,
Because like
they
she's getting weaker because she can't hold back as much. But have they explained why she's getting weaker?
I don't know if I don't remember if what specifically might have said that, so I can't speak to it,
Okay.
specific details, but my assumption is, like, I mean, if you're in there for too long and you're losing yourself, like, it's gotta be related to something like that, like, either because 'cause I'm like, "Okay, are they in stasis when they're outside the painting? Because they look the same, and it's like it's just, like because they got kinda,
Yeah.
like, fuzzy
How are
frozen.
they? Well, this goes back to the whole Pantheon thing that Zaya brought up of like, definitely one of my questions is like, they clearly live for hundreds of years, either because of the painting or in real life, because they mention, I mean, Eileen's been in there for 67 years, and so has Renoir at this point, or
Mhm.
Renoir came in, I don't know when he came in, but like, maybe Eileen was in it for more because the whole conflict that happens with them battling back and forth has been going on for 67 years, but you could interpret that as like Eileen potentially has been in the painting for longer than um so like it's not like she entered the painting when she was like 30 and is now 100 in real life.
Exactly, yeah.
So like do they live forever? Are they actually gods? There's a lot of interesting questions from that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, like, I'm curious too, like, how long was she in there? Like, do they say how long she's in there before Renoir shows up? Because 'Cause I'm like, what did she
I,
do?
I don't remember.
I don't
Like
think so because the timeline in the game is based on the fracture, which was
right.
100 years ago as far as like the world is concerned.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering like does time flow differently in the canvas than like outside or yeah, does it all flow the same and they literally are like deity type beings where they just
It
don't age as quickly?
from my understanding, it's the same because otherwise I was like, "Well, why would they tell me if you're outside the painting as Alicia and it says expedition year 46, and then when she goes into the painting, you're like, 'Oh, no, you're succumbing to mother's chroma,' and then maman's chroma," and then suddenly she's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, you're born," and then her whole essence goes into the life cycle of it, and she goes through 16 years. It seems like it's one to one, and that which would make sense as to why you're also decaying. She would be decaying, trying to hold back this destruction over time. He's like, you're not going to remain
I
perfect, I suppose. But
I think it's 1 to 1, and I guess there's also the throwaway line where Renoir or someone makes the comment of like they've stayed longer in other worlds before. So it
Yeah.
Maybe they are just like godlike beings. I mean, they can paint life or worlds into existence. They must be godlike beings to some extent, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, so many questions. That's why I want to beat it, because I want to find out like what's up. And also I'm like I'm sure I'm trying to prep myself too for what I assume is gonna happen, or what I know is gonna happen. Um well, I guess it's not even no, I don't know. Yeah, I don't I'm trying boy, so
You're struggling so hard to not talk about your theory.
well, it's not even well, it's not a theory anymore because I got it was proven, but like yeah, by just a half.
Can you just message me what spoiler you received? I'm
The same one I talk about where you go, "Oh, that sucks that you" remember I typed in Discord, I'm like, "Oh, I had something lightly spoiled for me," but I already had the idea for it, and then you came in a chat and you're like, "Oh, what was it?" I'm like, "Oh, this thing," and then you're like, "Oh, that does suck." I'm like, "Well, I already thought this would be the thing based
yeah,
on the conversations that the characters had at the start of essentially at the end of Act 2." I'm like, "Okay, well, clearly this is gonna be the
yeah. Okay,
thing."
that's a
Yeah, but I'm
fair
trying
point.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can
So
see why you're
I'm assuming
struggling
Zaya's
not
on the
to.
same page. I just in case I don't want to.
If
This
Uh,
is
she's not, then you're
so
going to see
frustrating
her.
to listen to.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Like, what?
Yeah, yeah. But yeah. I mean, it's really good game overall. And I'm like I'll if I can, hopefully I can play some today. Just like it, a little tough to play just sitting here. If I got the kid with me, but otherwise I might just beat it tonight, or at least attempt to on stream. And then
I mean,
maybe do side stuff later. But
I do want to make the comment of like overall, I do think that this game is probably like the best RPG or JRPG I've played probably since the original Final.
FRPG.
No,
FRPG.
Mhm.
the best JRPG I've played since Final Fantasy, like 9 or 10 maybe. Like the music is phenomenal in this game. This music needs to win best everything. The combat is ridiculously fun, and I really like the turn-based kind of combined with parry system. The story is great. The acting is great. There are weird missteps, like we said, with like scaling and stuff, but I do think that this game is phenomenal, and everyone should play it.
Bro didn't play Persona 5.
I played Persona 5. I think this game's better than Persona 5.
Well, yeah, but you said not since Persona 5. You said since Final Fantasy.
Well, wasn't Final Fantasy X was before Persona 5.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised you didn't say the best since Persona 5, because that's the most recent best RPG.
Well, I think it's better than Persona 5, so I'm going back further to
Okay.
Final Fantasy, and I'm saying that using Final Fantasy X as the metric because
Uh,
I'm like, I don't know if I would put this game above my love for Final Fantasy 9 or 10, but it's also hard to say because you've got like nostalgia on your side for that. I don't have nostalgia for Persona 5. I think this game is better than Persona 5.
I think so, because you talk about music and gameplay, and that's turn-based and yada
I
yada.
agree. Persona
Anyway.
5 is a very good one too. I think this game's better than Persona 5, therefore it gets to go back further
Okay,
in
okay, okay,
comparison.
okay, okay, okay. All right, fine. It's better than Mist.
I'm gonna sip my coffee.
So I was like, I'm just gonna wait.
Zaya's like, this game is not the best. Final Fantasy 14 is the best and will always be the best.
That's
As
right.
I say, as I'm just like sitting doing nothing in Solution 9. Like,
Slash
I
sit.
logged in, but I'm not doing anything.
But yeah, I was really hoping I'd finish it, but it's good to know that Zai hasn't finished it yet either.
I'm gonna finish it today.
Yeah, so I'm hoping I can get some side stuff done today and then play it tonight. Like maybe I'll just go try to fight that dude with the cheater picto and then just deal with like a 20-minute fight with his HPs. Or if I can find the entrance to that one zone and just run through it, and then get a bunch of stones, or deal with the stupid high HP duelist, or just like make a cheese shoot build on
The
Verso.
they're all like none of the cheese builds are instant. Well, Mael's did look like it used to be instant win. I did watch YouTube videos on it, but none of the other characters' cheese builds are like instant wins. And
Not instant, but like, hey, I can do this in like a couple turns. And with the ape with the
yeah,
cheater, I'm like, okay.
they're gonna help a lot, but you still need to actually learn the moves. You just don't need
Yeah.
to successfully repeat the moves 10 times. You just need to do it like 3 times.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, man. That's why I
Yeah.
get so tired of like, I like the combat in the game, but it's like I fought this enemy already. I'm like, I don't. It's like the okay. Aside from the scaling, the other worst section of the game was going down memory lane for 20 hours, leading up to the painters. I'm like, this is too long because I'm fighting the same boss, alternating between Claire and Obscure every section. I'm like, this is too long. That was like, I was so like this
That was a
when they
long
say like
section.
the meme of replaying your favorite game and getting to that part is this game is I would not like to replay this section. Like this is where I would like because I almost thought about too. I was like, oh, if I did, I'd have to like just drop it down to easy, have a cheesy build or something, and then just get through it because like it takes so long.
You
Like it was
can't just
fun at
run
first.
past everything. What do you
I
mean?
know, but you have to go. Yeah, but
Just
you got to get
sprint past
fight
it.
this.
That's how I got through a lot of areas. I was like, I don't want to do this. I'm just gonna run by everything.
I did that eventually because I'm like, oh my god, they're really going through every. Because I realized like how long each section was. Like later on, I was like, okay, let's run past. I'm like, oh, there's a big weird train ice monster. I'll fight him because I don't remember this guy. Oh, he's new. And then just killed Clair and Obscur every single time, whatever, to get the XPs. The only good thing about going through those areas again was that they dropped the
The
higher
only
versions.
good thing. The only good thing.
Yeah, the only good thing. Well, it's too fucking long, man. Is they dropped
Definitely
higher
set
level.
up as like a this is the final part of the game. It's got a
Uh
big
huh.
lead up. Remember all these places you went, and you're just like, but I know it's not the end. I know
It's
it's
like
not.
in FF7 OG, that section was when you get lost in the snow. I hate that part every time I get to it. And you're putting down those damn flags. I'm like, I just run until either I faint or I randomly happen to find the place I'm trying to get to. I hate that part in OG FF7. Uh, but like this is like when you kill the enemies in each of the zones, you get higher versions of the weapons that they drop in those zones, which I thought was like,
Mhm.
okay, that's really cool. So if you want, you can grind out better versions of those weapons and they'd only drop at 15, but that's only 5 levels below 20, so that's, like, not bad, especially because it's, like, it's so hard. There's so many weapons that are bespoke to that zone. It's like, those early game weapons you never go back to, so it was nice it was cool that I'm like, "Oh, this is cool." I wish there was a way to augment drop rates, but yeah, like that like, give me a pick that increases drop rate or something, like, that'd be great.
Luck really should do that. I don't know why it doesn't.
Yeah, because there's so many times, like, I could see grinding out, like, if I wasn't streaming, like, grinding out, like, "Oh, I can get a better version of this one weapon that I really liked early game that I haven't used because I don't wanna spend all the" I have enough points now if I wanted to get the shards, but, like, I would like to just save time farming because 'cause I'm gonna run out of those stones eventually and then have to go find all the traders and buy all the stones off them. But yeah, anyway, yeah. I can't wait to see what happens at the end of the game. Like, I'm like, "Okay." I wanna see what happens in the outside world, like, I'm really curious.
I feel
To talk.
like I mentioned before, regardless of what happens, I'm gonna be upset about it.
Mhm.
But regardless of what is at the end of the game, I desperately want some kind of prequel content. I want it to involve what happens leading up to the incident in the outside world, and I want to know what happens when Aline goes into the canvas for the first time.
Yeah,
Like,
like
how did she set up the world? What happens? Show me the fracture, show me Expedition Zero, like make that the core part of the experience of the game or whatever. It's just like very few games set up like previous events in a way that's like I want to see these. The last
yeah,
time I the last time I recall wanting like desperately wanting some kind of prequel content was Final Fantasy 16. I want to see the civilization. I want to see the Fallen. I want to see what happens when Ultima first comes to the world and like creates the mother crystals and everything like that. Like I want to see all that. I want to experience that. And I desperately want this for this game just because like I just want to see it. I just want to know like they're talking about all of this stuff and they allude to it and they're very like detailed about it about what happens and when it does and stuff like that, but it's like I want mostly because like the characters are just good except for
yeah,
one character. I fucking hate her and I want her to go away. But the characters are they're good and this game specifically, I think I've mentioned it before. I'm consistently impressed with how well like their facial expressions are and their body language and just like everything about it. It was like I want to experience Expedition Zero at least. But if it
y-
includes like what happened
Except
to
for when
get
they're
a
wiggling.
to get Aline into the painting, that too. I want to
yeah.
see
Even
that.
like a
I just want to know.
walking sim version of like, okay, there's stuff outside. You don't know fighting, just like okay, and she goes into the world, and then maybe end when Renoir shows up to be like, you gotta leave, like
Mhm.
you can't, and the only way to get you out now is to destroy this place, and then that's and then it ends on the fracture or something like
Yeah.
but yeah, who knows? That'd be interesting to see. Yeah,
I desperately want more game content from this world. I think it's not spoilery to say that like there's too many questions to get satisfactory answers to everything we're bringing up, even in this conversation of like what happens in the
Mhm.
fracture
yeah,
or the world or Eileen entering the painting or Expedition Zero. Like all of those could be a game by themselves, and it it kills me because I'm like, I think they announced they're not doing DLC for this game. Which would be a challenge, I think, just because of like scaling and how I don't know how that'd work. But I desperately want more from this studio, and I'm like, I have to wait years now for
Yeah.
something.
And the problem too is like they could do an Animus thing of like, oh, here's someone else's painted world. Let's check it out. But it's like, but then you're kind of the
I don't
you're like,
care
okay,
about
but
the other painted world. I
Yeah,
care about this one. Show me Lord
yeah, yeah,
Verso.
yeah,
every
yeah.
future game could just be a different painting, or you could just go to like the writers or something, or a book, or like a different conflict. And I'm like, but I didn't get everything from this one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
care what they're
exactly.
doing. I want to know what happens to Verso.
Yeah, because like, because I think about too, like, there's, I mean, because that's when you think about like the Animus situation. It's like, okay, new area, new people. It's like now it's not that they're fake. It's just like, okay, you're in a simulation, but you can still like characters and like, oh, I really like Cassandra. I like Eivor. I like these characters I run into. It's fun, even though like even in the lore of the game, it's just recreating an idea of what might have happened. Uh,
Mhm.
you just got to make sure you hit the big beats, or else you desync. So it's like, would you want to play another game where it's like, okay, this world is fake, or like the first time they realized they had the power to do
I
this? Like, I don't know.
I don't know if I would want to play. I wouldn't want to play another one where the reveal was like, oh, it's fake. And I don't think I would want to play a game where you started as the main character knowing it was fake,
Yeah,
which kind of puts you in the position of like, I would want to play as one of the painters going into the worlds. Like, that could be cool if it was essentially conflict within worlds, or like you had to go, I don't know, I'm making up stuff. This isn't spoilers, but like maybe it's like conflict between painters and writers escalates, the writers take something or steal something, or like you have to go into the paintings to retrieve something, or like whatever that has you hopping into different worlds and different paintings as part of the gameplay with like the overarching story. But I don't know if I would want to do like, oh, I know I'm a fake or like character in a world, and I know that one of the people I'm going to be interacting with is the painter that created this world.
yeah.
Like,
That's very
I
split
don't think
fiction if you were to chase people
yeah,
down like in different worlds. Like, okay, this
it
is this world.
is.
This is yeah.
Well, I was thinking like
But
that, or like Rift Apart, like a Rift
yeah, yeah,
Apart
yeah.
type structure
Just
game. I
changing
think would be cool.
dimensions.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Um.
they weren't in stasis outside the paintings, I feel like, yeah, that could work, like because this is just Inception, right? You're like, "Oh, I gotta go in
Right.
and see where they are," but then if they get out, like, do they just get out and first, like, they make it to the exit point and then they run away with
Right.
whatever? I don't
I
know. Yeah.
I almost feel like a future game would have to be from a different perspective, like the writers or something else, in order to kind of work. Because then you could
Yeah,
have
like
conflict told from a different perspective. With You could introduce any narrative aspects you wanted. It could be like, oh, the writers and painters are at war because they create the same worlds or something, and like only one can
copyright infringement.
exist. Or I mean, maybe like if they each have the same
AI.
idea, it like kills the other person who comes up with that idea, or like takes their powers. Like, you'd have to have some sort of different perspective on the conflict, or I feel like it has to be a continuation of the main family, which
Yeah,
would just
or
be playing as Mael again.
do the inverse of AC and have it like 70% in the real world and like 30% in paintings or books or whatever. Like expand on the lore of the outside. Like you do the John Wick thing. You're giving us a little bit of the lore. Now give us, I want to know more about this outside world. Because now it's like, not to say that's the real thing, but it's like kind of is the real thing. So I want to know. Like, do you even know? Like, did they have any crumbs of ideas, or did they just kind of make it? It's like one of those things, like Tolkien with the ring, and it's like, what can I do with this ring? Oh, let's make this whole other thing about it. But anyway, good stuff. I'm looking forward. I mean, I don't know if I'll beat it tonight, even if I go towards the end, but we'll see. I'm curious to see the ending. But all right. Well, it's a long conversation about Clair Obscur. Good game. Like we said last week, still a good game. All right. Well, we can go ahead and call it there. So thank you for watching this, and thank you, Isli. Thank you, Sai, for joining.
Mhm.
Yep.
And we'll see you all next time.
Later.
Bye.